Hello, everybody. How are you doing tonight? Welcome to the Minutes with Milo show. And we're live, as always, on Mondays and Thursdays, 9 o'clock. We're doing a talk show, call in, video in, show, talk about, roundabout, shut about, all those bouts. So, some, like they like to say in the theater business, some housekeeping rules. You need to go to the potty, just go. Not in your chair. Go to the bathroom. Do it like big people do. All right? And if you're clicking on this, before you click away, click the subscribe button, and then you can do whatever you want to do. But subscribe, like the video, turn the notification bell on, watch the whole thing. You don't have to do it right now. You can come back to it. There's all kinds of them. This is my 110th show. And on Spotify, some of them are out there as podcasts. So you don't have to watch podcasts. When I do a podcast, and I listen to them. I don't watch them. I mean, I guess you could, but, I watch YouTube and I listen to podcasts. So the thing I like about podcasts is, as I'm listening to them, I can go about my other business. So it's just really kind of weird. I don't know. But they're out there on Google Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. So check it out. So Saturday night around my place is usually movie night. So this past Saturday night was no exception. And me and the wifey sit down and watch the movie. And we like to watch things that are based on true stories, if we can. I mean, fiction's great and all that stuff. And even though movies are based on true stories, I mean, there tends to be quite a bit of fiction in them just as well. So, but we saw one October Sky and watched the preview and thought, it was pretty cool. So we sit down and watched it. And it was very interesting. I thought it was pretty cool. It wasn't super funny. It wasn't super dramatic. Hey, Clell. Not too late to the party. In fact, besides me, you are the only party goer here that I know of. Could be others lurking out there in no man's land. So we watched October Sky. Come to find out, it's based on the memoir of Hickman. Oh, now see, I forgot his name. They called him Sonny in the. He wrote the book Rocket Boys, and that was the name of the title I put on this, the Rocket Boys story, because that was the first one. And then when they made the movie, they used a anagram of Rocket Boys, and it came out to be October Sky. So Homer Hickman Jr. And the funny thing about that is his full name is Homer H. Hickman Jr. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Let's see. Based on the book, what happened to that? Barnes & Noble. trying to get that up. About Homer. Yeah, it's an official website. We're gonna look at it just to make sure I'm not stupid crazy. I might be half of those, but not all of them. Homer H. Hickman Jr. That was his name. Do you think anybody ever called him Triple H? H cubed? Whatever. Hello, Roberto. Cubed would be 4, though, wouldn't it? What's 3? Triangle? I don't know. Anyway, they called him Sonny. I don't know why. Not in the movie, though. In the movie, they called him Homer. In the book, he referred to himself, I guess, as Sonny. Anywho, the movie was about coal mining. It was about a relationship of son and father, siblings, mom, friends. It was just about family, friends, back in the late 50s. So it took place in a real town. They used the town's real name, and in West Virginia. And the father was a coal mining foreman, and later on in the movie, you find out he had black lung. But that's neither here nor there to the story. So let's start out with Homer Jr. So let me share this About Homer page here, his website. So he wrote lots of books. This happened to be the one about him, a memoir, and he did another one after this one about his hometown in West Virginia. So it was Coalwood, West Virginia. And window capture. I'll shrink me down. Hide the phone number. Bring up the window capture. Look at all that. There it is. And show that to you all. Alright, so this is Homer Hickman's About page. And it's got some pictures in there. And I always find it nice to go back and look at, if you can find things like this page, and even though it's not the actor, because when you see a movie, you kind of get a picture in your head about that guy is, the actor is that person, which, it's not true, but you get that picture in your mind. So when you see real pictures of the real person, you're kind of like, huh. And then sometimes you think, well, that actor really looked like him. But this is a picture right here of Sonny talking to his dad on the coal mine black phone. Coal mine black phone. Imagine that. I don't guess they had any other colors, you know what I mean? Because coal's black. But it looked like he had it in, his house. Which probably did, because like I said, his dad was the foreman. Unless he's sitting in the office somewhere, that's his house, and he's in his PJs. So he kind of, and to me, he looks like Opie, with black hair. So Robert says, after World War II, my great uncles, my grandmother, and her sister all moved to Beckley, West Virginia, to mine coal. So it showed a little bit about coal mining, about going down in the mine and how short they were, and all of them are just running around in sooty faces, and the things they were using, and bolstering up the ceilings, and it was really kind of strange. I mean, I think I've been on maybe one coal mine site and it wasn't active, So, you look at kind of rundown buildings and the big, you know, uh, mine, the elevator shaft or whatever, the like the tower above the mine, and you don't really put anything together until you see, in the movie it was like a compound. What I thought when I first saw it was like, buildings and people walking around, and then the mine shaft was just kind of like a building everybody went into and disappeared into, and they had apparently they had like landlines or like these. It says the black phone uh, down into the mine. And I mean, it didn't go into detail about how far it was or anything like that. So it's really kind of weird to, you probably see it, when you're back of your mind in other movies, it just didn't click. But when it's a focus in a movie, it makes it like, oh, so here are the guys walking around and they all had a certain style of lunch pail. And there's probably several reasons for that. So Clell's Robert talking about Clell's dad worked in the mines and then apparently in Beckley, West Virginia, and then moved to Russell County. And Robert, huh. So y'all related? No, they ain't related. That's pretty cool. I don't know uh, personally any coal miners. Well, I take that back. In the first house I lived in on the Virginia side, uh, my neighbor was a former coal miner, and he was elderly, but he also had black lung, and he was a really nice guy. And so, you travel in Virginia and you see a lot of people driving around, and just not so much anymore, maybe, but back when I was younger, and you would see, just, I wouldn't call them shacks, but they were, homes, but they weren't well maintained. But you'd have a home, and there'd be an expensive car or truck sitting in the driveway, and it just was really kind of bizarre, you know, to see, such a nice vehicle in the driveway of a house that didn't look like it was really well maintained at all. And, people would always say, you know, well, that's where people coal mine, they buy a lot of fancy things because they make pretty good money. I don't know. Just like everything else, you know, there's probably well-to-do coal miners who are probably not so well-to-do coal miners, just like any other profession. You can't. Sometimes you can't explain it. Sometimes you can. Well, it seems like you know different people, even though they do the same job, you know, I don't know, manage it better. I don't know how you describe it, but anyway. So that was the only true coal miner that I ever knew was my neighbor, and we didn't hang out or do anything like that. But anywho, back to the story. What do I remember the story? So, like I was talking about in the movie, he didn't start out really young, and he come to find out more about the book. Uh, it stretched in a movie. Of course, they really condensed it, and they stretched it really stretched over like 3 or 4 years of his high school career. This whole thing. So let's see. He was born in 1943, and he was the youngest son of the couple. The Robert says his uh, cousin had Jaguars and Trans Am's Jeeps instead of, because apparently I guess he was a coal miner. Yeah, I don't know why that people would say that, and I guess just like anything else, sometimes it was true, Sometimes it wasn't. And I always heard those big metal fiberglass satellite dishes was West Virginia state flour. Just seemed like back in the day, when you couldn't get cable TV, and up some of those hollows, up even some of the main roads, I guarantee you there wasn't any cable TV. So in order to get good TV, they would purchase satellite dishes with the receivers, and they could put those things anywhere. They could see certain parts of the sky and get just awesome TV. I really liked the one that I had. I really did. So it kind of skips the movie, but uh, raised in Coldwood, graduated Big Creek High School in 1960, went to Virginia Polytech Institute, which was Virginia Tech, and in '64 he graduated with a BS degree in industrial engineering. U.S. Army veteran, served as a first lieutenant, 4th Infantry Division in Vietnam from '67 to '68. Won a commendation and Bronze Star. Served 6 years on active duty. Left as a captain. So he wrote his first book when he got back from Vietnam. And he wrote, apparently he did a lot of scuba diving. He used to write magazine articles about that. But his first book, Torpedo Junction, is a military history bestseller published in '89 on the writing about the battle of U-boats along the American East Coast during World War II. So in 1998, which was apparently 10 years after that, he wrote Rocket Boys, a memoir, the story of his life in the little town of Coldwood, West Virginia. Became an instant classic. Rocket Boys has since been translated into 8 languages and also released as an abridged audiobook and electronic book. And that's the one they made into October Sky. So I kind of knew what an anagram was, but you take Rocket Boys and you rearrange all the letters and you come up with other words, and it just so happens they come up and settled on October Sky, which is pretty cool because they shot these rockets into the sky. Go figure. So the story that we watched in the movie was, like I said, it was condensed, and it was strictly about him and 3 other boys. And it didn't go into great detail. We'll look at this other page in a minute, but it's just about how a common interest, and I think 2 of the boys, they weren't really hep on rockets. They were just, Homer's friends. And apparently they didn't have anything better to do. So when Homer got involved in rockets, well, what the heck, man? My friend's involved in rockets. Let's just go and see what this is all about. So that's how I portrayed it and saw it in the movie. And there was another guy that was kind of really the brains. So, like I said, here's Homer, his dad's a diehard coal miner. He's the foreman, and he's really serious about it. And the only way in this small town, you're either a coal miner or you have some other skill that gets you out. Well, Homer's brother was a good football player, and they thought he'd get a scholarship. But Homer wasn't very good at football. So he, was just destined, to be working in the mine because he didn't have any other skills to get out. And in 1957, Russia launched Sputnik. And they, like everything, I was talking to Craig today about this. Back when I was young, if something like this happened, everything stopped. the whole, I won't say the world, but at least the United States, a lot of times, everything would just stop. Like the school stopped when they did, the Apollo rockets. Every time one of those things launched, man, it was just like, irk. And you watched TV and watched it. If there was a solar eclipse, everything stopped. And everybody went out and did the little pinhole in the cardboard box and looked at the shadow because you couldn't look at it directly. You go blind. That kind of stuff. And it was always something big like that. So in the movie, when they found out that the Russians had launched the Sputnik, it was apparently a low orbit satellite. So at certain times of the night, you could see it going across the night sky. And that's what they did. People went out and looked up in the sky for however long, listening to the radio. So, the announcer, that was the biggest story there was. So he was going, well, it's going over here. It should be there, whatever. And they watched it. So Homer watched it go across the sky and immediately thought, I want to build rockets. He thought that was so cool. I don't even know if he knew what a rocket was. He just decided, the Russians shot up a satellite. He was going to get interested in rockets, and he was going to go to space or work with rockets or do whatever. Of course, his dad thought he was crazy. His older brother, thought he was probably a big nerd and picked on him a lot. And his mom was kind of supportive, because I'm thinking, he's the baby of the house. So that started his journey, and he had a teacher that was a chemistry physics teacher, and she encouraged him, because she knew, you know, these kids were destined to either be coal miners or, maybe they didn't go down in mine, but they worked for the company. Uh, One of the things later in the movie, uh, come to find out, to get off of company property, to get off the coal mine owner's property, these boys had to walk 8 miles to get off the land that the coal mine company owned. 8 miles. And I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But they had to. So, where is this part? That was IMDb. Oh, this is IMDb. So, let me just jump into who played. And these people were so young. Laura Dern, this is her in the movie. She just looked young. And I don't know how you say this guy, Jake Gyllenhaal. Now he's a pretty good, uh, well-known actor. This is what he looked like then. I mean, this is Homer. This is the smartest boy of the group. He is what you would consider the typical high school nerd. Good at school, socially awkward, chemistry, rockets. He was the guy that they all went to and said, well, Homer went to and said, hey, I want to know about rockets. These two were Homer's friends, and they were just kind of along for the ride. So she gave him the book about, uh, what was the name of that? Go down here. What was the name of that book? Oh, gave him a book on applied rocket science. So that's where here's what she's doing here is giving him the book. He's getting ready to, looks like he's getting ready to kiss her, but he's not. So there he is. This is what I don't know if you can see it in the background. This is the coal mine. And that's the guy that plays his dad. And, it just looks, they did an awesome job. It looks like you would expect a dirty coal mine, steam coming up everywhere, all these low hanging wires, guys running around with hard hats everywhere. How many daggone pictures of that are you going to show me? Can we get on with something else here? I think I'm caught in an endless loop. Boy, that's terrible. Get out of that. 33 of 77, and I bet you 60 of these pictures are just the cover of the book and the movie jacket. All right, so here's one of the actors that portrayed the guy that helped him on his rocket, because these were just, uh, high school kids, and even in the real world, they were, I don't know, freshmen, something like that when they started this. So they first made their very first rocket out of a flashlight and parts of a model airplane, and I think they filled it with black powder and lit it. So it wasn't really a rocket. It was more of a bomb. It was kind of funny because they had it strapped to the fence at his house, and when he lit it, it went off, and it just blew a big hole in the fence. But here they were in chemistry class, and I don't know what they had, but they were trying to hide it from the teacher. And the teacher was coming around and looking at, they're supposed to be doing this experiment, and they had some chemical they weren't supposed to have. So to hide it from the teacher, they poured it down the sink. So this is why, it got into the plumbing, and one of the Bunsen burners, a kid was lighting a Bunsen burner or something, and it sparked them. It blew up puffs of flame out of every sink, which is pretty cool. So this is when he's trying to find somebody to help him build the model rocket. And that's what it was all about, was model rockets. And they got some, according to the movie, they got some pretty elaborate ones. So they started out, like I said, with a flashlight. And then if you've ever messed with model rockets, they're now very sophisticated, just in the fact that, they're all modular. You have a cardboard tube, you put the rudders on them, you put the cap on it, it has a parachute. When you put the engine in there, there's a slight charge at the top to pop the parachute. The rest of it's, solid, propellant. And then, you have like a little flash cap. You touch to the 9-volt battery or to the launcher, however you do it, which ignites the little engine, and it shoots into the air. And they're really fun, but you lose a lot of them because they go way up in the air, and then when the parachute deploys, they just float wherever. Used to do a couple with my son out here in the field, but they found a place. I don't know. Here's his brother played his brother. You can tell he's a jock. This was one of his girl interests. I think that's the same girl. So here's one of the rockets they found in the woods. They'd lost it for a period of time. So that's pretty sophisticated. Now, according to 8th grade science class, that's about right. That's, I don't know what they're like now, but chemistry class in my high school was just like that. Everybody had the same sink, the same Bunsen burner, the same, spigot, and that's where you dissect pigs or you did your little experiments and all those kind of things. You made a bomb from a can of Beanie Weenies. It's trying to heat up on a tractor manifold. So I don't understand. Did you just put a can of Beanie Weenies on the tractor manifold when it was hot? Is that what you're saying? And it shot it up into the sky? Yes. Did you ever complete that paint shaker? that you're going to make out of PVC? Did you ever make that thing? If you did, I've got to see it. You got to send me videos of it. We'll put it on the show. But they built some pretty good sized rockets. But they didn't try, as far as I know, they went up looking like this and they came down looking like this. So it wasn't, they didn't have any kind of recovery program other than trying to determine its trajectory and then going out and finding it. So here's another example of the coal mine. The buildings around, the street running into it. This is one where at the very end of the show, the very last rocket, his father finally came to one of their launches and he let him. They went from lighting fuses, cannon fuses, to electronic, igniters. And all the townspeople came out to watch. This is what they blew in the fence with that first rocket. So this is Cape Canaveral. This is not one of their deals. All right, so I've got to find this about Homer books. Don't blow yourself up. Let's go home. There was one that was really good, shop blog about Homer, appearances, charities. Let's go back to books. Nope, that wasn't it. Let's see. So he wrote this one. Nope, that's not it. Blow yourself up. Where did it go? Come on. There was one that was really really pretty informative about not necessarily the book, but the story. All right. So this one this is Wikipedia. So math geek Quentin Wilson was the redheaded guy that I said was the real brains of the operation. This guy here. So he was the Quentin. He was the aerospace or the brains of it. And they shot off 35 rockets in total. And they got more complex every time. And what happened in the movie, now I don't know if this was real life, but one of the things that happened was that they shot off a rocket. And you can imagine these guys are building rockets with very little knowledge about the fuel they were using, the aerodynamics, weight distribution. And one of the big things about their rockets was how to create the thrust. And it's all, you create pressure in the with the fuel and it escapes at the bottom of the rocket, but they had to control that with a nozzle. Well, what they used first was just a washer soldered onto the bottom of the metal tube to decrease the diameter of the tube and make, the stream of hot gas coming out. Well, needless to say, that didn't work very well. But in the movie, one of them, they were shooting them off close to the his house, which was just down the road from the coal mine. Anyway, the rocket went streaking sideways and through the the compound of the coal mine. And of course, his dad immediately knew what happened, and he came out when boys come running up to try to find the rocket. The dad was there going, "I don't want to ever see you have this rocket on company property ever again." End of story. And that's when they had to walk 8 miles to the spot where they started shooting off the rockets, and they named it. Uh, what did they name it? Uh, Cape Coalwood instead of Cape Canaveral. They called it Cape Coalwood, and that was where everybody come to see them when they were shooting off the rockets. Where did they built a platform here? This is Cape Coalwood, and it was so dangerous. The rockets they were building, of course, in the movie, and I'm sure this is somewhat accurate, was they would just go every which way. Sometimes they'd go like 4 or 5 feet and explode, you know. And so they started going every which way, and so they built themselves a tower, a launching room out of old scrap wood. And one of them at the first would run out there, light the wick, run back in, and then they would hide and protect themselves from it. But it was just an old place where it looked like they'd done strip mining and covered it up. Well, the bunker, as you call it, probably wouldn't, because like I said, eventually this is where he's in the machine shop, and now he looks like he's got a steel tube about a foot long. So you fill this with propellant and a good nozzle, that thing's really moving. So he approached the coal mine machine shop, and a couple of those guys would help him, and he had to get somebody, instead of soldering the washer on, they would weld it. And there was finally one guy, the machinist, said that's never going to work. You need a proper nozzle. And I don't know how they came up with the design, but that's when they really started having good, you know, launches. That's the word, launches. And I think it's down here. Delaval nozzle. Deladal, Laval nozzle. And it's, I don't know if you can see it there or not. Let's see. This is what the machinist had to make for him. And they made it, of course, down to scale for his rocket. But this is what he took to the science fair. And the way that it worked out was the teacher, Laura Dern, convinced them that if they should go to the National Science Fair with all their information and, try to win the prize. And that would give them notice, and, maybe they could go to college on a scholarship or something. Well, that's what they started working for. And so when they got, I guess they had to go through, local science fairs. Anyway, they got to go to the regional or to the state science fair. And they went to the National Science Fair. Homer's display is well received, and he enjoys popularity and some sightseeing. Overnight, someone steals his machined rocket part, the nozzle, and his autographed picture of Dr. Werner von Braun. Homer makes an urgent phone call home to his mother, who implores John to end the ongoing strike so that Mr. Bolden, the machinist, could build another replacement nozzle. So that happens. And whether that's true in real life or not, it was pretty interesting. So they win and they all get scholarships to, college. And Robert says he had a chemistry set once. And I did too. And I made rotten egg gas. And basically it was just sulfur and paraffin. And it stunk. It really stunk to high heavens. But, I mean, they weren't going to give you the stuff to blow yourself up with. But it was cool. And I had at one point had a microscope that had pre-made slides, mosquito larvae, all those kind of things. You could see certain cells and things like that, onion skins, and then you had blank slides where you could take pond water and drop on there, and then you laid that little piece of plastic over it to kind of, seal it. You look at it under a microscope, and you could see little worm larva things and whatever squiggling around in there. So, but the movie as a whole was pretty good, and I thought the story was really interesting. But the good part of it is, in the end, they did get to go to school. Homer, let's see, he actually got to be. Let's go back to his site. Let's see. Okay. While working on his writing career, Homer was employed as an engineer for the U.S. Army Missile Command from 71 to 81, assigned to Huntsville, Alabama, in Germany. He began employment in the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, NASA, at Marshall Space Flight Center in 81 as an aerospace engineer. During his NASA career, Mr. Hickman worked in spacecraft design and crew training. His specialties at NASA included training astronauts on scientific payloads and extravehicular activities. He also trained astronaut crews for many Space Lab and Space Shuttle missions, including the Hubble Space Telescope deployment mission. So he ended up being a rocket man. Let's see. Mr. Hickman married Linda Terry Hickman, an artist and his first editor and assistant. Love their cats and share their time between homes in Alabama and the Virgin Islands. So, what is all that? Is this Robert sending me stuff? Oh, that's Clell sending me stuff. Did you send me just pictures? You painted it red. So it doesn't sling out the end of the nozzle, huh? I'll have to put them on here. I can get them out. I have to swap phones and stuff. So the other guys, according to the movie, they did pretty good. one of them was a business owner, sold cars and some different things like that. So here, Homer, Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets in '64. This is before he goes off to Vietnam. Here's a picture of him in Vietnam. Here's over there. How do we get out of this one? Go back. So he wrote quite a few books. Quite a few books. There's Torpedo Junction. Come on, can I get the full? There it is. Although technically not one of the Josh Thurlow novel series, Homer Hickman's first book, Torpedo Junction, is a companion piece to The Keeper's Son, a nonfiction work that took Homer over a decade to research. Torpedo Junction was published in '89. Naval Institute, top publisher of military and historical books. It has been published in hardcover, 2 paperback editions. The very real backstory is the basis for the novel Keeper's Son. Homer H. Hickman Jr. Why would you do that? Why would you do HHH? So I don't know how accurate, the movie was. Y'all, like I said, based on true stories. How much? What do they call it? Theatrical release that they take. They drew this. Some of those kids drew this on the chalkboard when they went to class one time. Wish they showed a picture of the nozzle. It was really pretty nice. Oh, so here he is winning the national. They got the gold medal, the national science fair. So they couldn't afford to send everybody, so they just sent him because he was kind of the head of the crew. And his uh, physics teacher, she just here in the bed. She's in the hospital here. She ended up dying with lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease. Uh, so that was pretty sad. She died like at 31, something like that. Hodgkin's lymphoma. I can't remember how you say that. But anyway, so yeah, it was a pretty good. All right, you got to send pictures. Chuck it up in a drill, spin it away. On small cans, add a rag for filler, and it wobbles even better. Oh yeah. You took the time to paint it red. Yeah. So anyway, that was my Saturday night movie, and like it's fun to watch the ones that are true life, based on true stories, so and so. Some of it was filmed in Tennessee and different places like that. So pretty interesting. Uh, I don't even know. I mean, I've talked about this one other one where you had encyclopedias, and I don't even know where these boys got their information from. I mean, it showed him going to the high school library, I think, some different things like that. But who knows where Coalwood was in relation? I don't know. I didn't look it up on the map. But anyway, it's worth a watch. And what's funny is it was made several years ago, and so all the actors are pretty young, and they actually look like teenage boys. I don't know how old they were when they made it, but I mean, so. But anyway, that was tonight's show. If you liked it, leave me a comment. If you watched this far, I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys showing up. Robert, I hope we got some good pork left over because I think that's probably that and a couple other things are the only thing tomorrow at lunch that are going to be uh, an entree. That's the word. Everything else is either appetizer or dessert. So for Halloween lunch, we're going to have, uh, a bunch of cakes and candies and uh, maybe some chili, ham rolls, and then your pulled pork. So there better be enough left. Y'all didn't wolf it all down. We got tied up in something, didn't get to have lunch, but got to leave early, so that's all right. Anyway, appreciate y'all coming. I don't know what the next show is going to be, except that it's going to be Thursday night. And I put another podcast out. Yeah, Craig's making some deviled eggs. He was happy to get home, get off early so he could go and get started on them an extra 45 minutes or something like that. But anyway, if you're not one of the regulars and you've watched it this far, then you should come back and watch more and tune in, look at some of the other shows. You'll find something you like. I'm sure if you stayed this long, you must have liked what you were seeing. If you did, leave me a comment. If you didn't like it, tell me why you didn't like it. Subscribe. Maybe there'll be a show in the future you'll like. But I put out another podcast, like I said at the beginning. Check it out. Spotify podcast, Minutes with Milo, everything, Facebook, Twitter. Trying to do better on those things. It's like a roller coaster, you know what I mean? You get, oh, I got to do better. Oh, I slow down. Got to do better. Oh, slow down. So anyway, but I appreciate everybody coming by. It'll be the end of the show. Tune in this Thursday. Thursday at 9 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.